Pensado's Place is brought to you by
This superstar mixer, he approaches his mixes like an athlete. We're going to talk about that. We got a brand new ITL. Guess where you're at? You're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
What's up, everybody? Glad you could make it back. We got a really cool show. Special friend of mine's on today, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Herbert, how's your week been so far?
Every guest is a special friend of yours.
This one's really special.
That's true. That is absolutely true. And actually, I'll tell you something that one day he pigeonholed me at the front desk of Larrabee, and we had about a 20-minute conversation with you about you, and this is a guy who really loves you. He's a special dude, so I always remember that moment. Great week. A lot of stuff happening in Pensado land, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Like, aren't we a little overwhelmed at what all's going on? Jesus.
It's good stuff, though. You know, I don't want you guys to think we're
Right.
we're complaining, because we're not. All our problems are.
White people's problems.
I can't say that.
I knew you had to tee me up to do the race thing. A couple of things. We had a great time at the panel last week. Shout out to Bridget Gardner and her team for doing that stuff.
It was so much fun. It gets bigger every year.
Yeah, at the SAE Tech Expo. I had an interesting rock and roll moment. I ended up in a corner with Andrew Sheps, Ross Hogarth, John Nettlesby, somebody else too, and they were talking about everything from Roger Lynn to Rupert Neve to Jim Keltner and so on and so forth. On the way out, I run into Paula Salvador, who runs Capitol, and then I got home and I had never watched Sound City because we have a show coming up. So I watched Sound City, and all those people are in Sound City. I mean, Paula Salvador was a major figure in it. It was just interesting to be connected to it that way. And then probably in 3 weeks we have a special show we're doing from that studio that we're going to.
Do you think Brian Peterson could do that show in Smell-O-Vision?
Yeah.
The smell of that place, right, Brian? The smell of that place was like incredible.
It says vintage.
You could smell history there.
Absolutely.
And a lot of cocaine and stuff, but other than that, it was pretty cool.
That's part of the history.
That's true.
For sure. So that was really cool. The other fun thing that you and I did together, we are in kind of a Nashville moment, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we had the great pleasure of talking to John Willis, who is an absolute session beast in Nashville. His studio, Willis Sounds, is one of the places to go. He plays everything but drums. But his wife, who's a Spitfire, Stephanie, she reached out to us, told us how much Nashville likes us. So I hope you're okay, because I'm dreaming up some Herb stuff for Nashville.
Well, the other day you did the hot damn pretty well. I'll get you a couple more words.
Okay, cool. But I'm in creative mode. So we called John. You had a great idea. You want to tell him about it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we sit in the studio we film in. There's a few people here, a couple of dozen, but you sit in this room day after week after week, and you forget that it's going out to millions of people in the world. So you don't really think about that. If I did, I'd probably get a little nervous.
Right.
But the way that a lot of people receive the show is heartwarming, and it gives us the motivation to go forward. And this was a classic example of what's so beautiful about our audience.
And then as pranksters, we set up a prank.
Well, John Willis, as you mentioned, in Nashville, his wife reached out to us and let us know that John and his friends kind of were digging the show in Nashville.
Yep.
So I think you came up with the little scheme to give him a call, or was it me? I can't remember.
Well, it was me to give him a call, but it was you to do the intro. So we got on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Hi, this is Herb Trollock," and you went, "Hi, this is Dave Pensado." You're at the place, Pensado's Place.
I thought
silence.
I thought
John was in shock.
I think John dropped the phone.
I think he did.
But only because he's cool, not because we're special. It was just a great moment. And
super cool. It's got huge credits. Taylor Swift, Kenny Chesney, Luke Bryan. Great guy. His wife is an absolute Spitfire. So stay tuned. Pensado's Place has Nashville on its mind, and we'll be back to you shortly about all that stuff, correct? Shall we get on with the show?
Do it.
Cool. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you. As usual, today's show is emanating from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles. We're broadcasting from our beautiful HD studio. Dave, what does HD stand for?
Well, first of all, don't say emanating when we go to Nashville.
I won't. That's because we're here in LA in Santa Monica. I'll be going, coming from
It stands for Home Depot.
Home Depot. Great. Okay. As always, you can find us at Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Kindly like and subscribe. That's important. It allows us to keep coming to you in many ways. And you guys power that, and it's super important. And we are super grateful that you like and subscribe for us. So please keep that going. Shout outs to our friends at Vintage King and Avid are continuing to make all this possible.
Absolutely.
And, right? There.
Yeah.
By the way, how's your Pro Tools 11 install coming?
Well, it's great. We finished it. I have a special arrangement with that, so I'm up to Pro Tools 13.
Oh, cool.
So I'll let you know how that's going. 11 was so last month.
Okay.
It's going great. 11 is it's a beast. It does things. I thought 11 was going to get us kind of back up to 0, but they passed 0. It's a net gain.
So the show we're going to do on that is going to be
Yeah,
helpful for everybody?
Yeah, I think so. Any DAW that you have, this show's going to be about DAWs, specifically Avid, but it's going to be germane to all of those.
Good deal. On to the Vintage King stuff. Vintage King has all of our guys and gals back in Detroit. Hello to them. We love you as usual. For all you folks out there, you got one more week to get in on the Vintage King Pensado deal for the Brainworks BX Saturator. This thing is Dave approved and Dave used, correct? You use
Absolutely.
it a lot.
I use it a lot.
Here's the deal. Go to www.vintageking.com/Pensado. VintageKing.com/Pensado. When you check out, use the promo code Pensado, and voila, $100 off the piece, and you are all good. So again, thanks to JVD. And
If your name is Pensado, do you get $200 off?
No, no, you're not allowed to play in that game. So again, thanks to all the folks back in Detroit. Most appreciated by us and our audience. Ask it. Ask the Vintage King question. What is it?
A lot of plugins and a lot of real-time analyzers talk about A weighting, B weighting, and C weighting. What do all of those mean, and how are they applicable to my use of an analyzer?
There we go. We'll get you that answer. It'll be posted below us. And now, tee up our ITL.
ITL is some concepts on how to handle bass and make bass sound really big in your mixes.
There we go. Let's roll it.
Today what I'd like to show you is I was working on a track, my old buddies, D Mechanic, incredible musicians, incredible material, and their material lends it for Into the Layers because they're risk takers, particularly Jorge. And when I got this bass, I wanted it to be powerful and big and all the things you want a bass to do. And all the elements were there, they just needed to be kind of massaged. So I'm gonna take you through the process. Here's the bass that I was given. Our old buddy Pultec. Now, I had a little bit too much below 45, so I've got a low pass filter to get some of that frequency out that we can't hear anyway that's affecting the overall level of our mix. So I'm adding this now. This is what it sounds like if I do too much. Not enough. Just right. Okay, so that's my thought process. Boost the crap out of it and take out what I don't need. I think crap is an audio term. I have to check with AES about that. Now here's a plugin that you guys that own UAD have access to. There's a bunch of them. This is actually a model of a real plugin that was real popular in the rock world. Now what I'm doing here is I'm adding some sub. I can give you a bowel movement. That's pretty cool. Okay, our old buddy, our bass. I've got different notes that have like dun 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 dun. I got all kinds of things going on like that. But before I get into that, I wanted to add a little bit of 60. I'm kind of digging this little bit of clipping here. Now, there's a couple of notes where the 70, 60 area is just a little hot. So this will kind of tame them for me. Okay, nothing fancy here. When it gets to a certain part of the song, I needed to do this. So I'm gonna show you this. Wherever you see this dip, this is where this plugin instantiates. So I'm gonna let you hear this. When I had those long notes, I wanted a little extra 60. So I just automated the plugin. That's what plugins do well. So let me play you a little piece here and you can kind of see what's going on. Now don't be afraid of distortion here. That clipping helps you find it. There's good distortion, there's bad distortion. So this is the way I solved an issue with some of solve's probably too strong a word. This is the way I got a great bass sound that was given to me that fits so perfectly in this track. This is the way I enhanced it and made the notes even. I maximized the amount of bass that we were hearing without killing my meters, okay? All right, guys. Next time.
Hope you guys enjoyed that ITL and get some tips and tricks about bass. Welcome to our desk, Mr. Jaycen Joshua. This decade-plus relationship between he and Dave goes way deeper than mixing and interning and watching careers. This is truly two guys who are deep friends and have a great history. Welcome back, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Second time around, right?
Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, you want to do the 3/8 pound? All right, so you have to, there you go. Dave, that trick just not working.
It amuses me, that's all that matters.
As long as you're having fun with it.
The world is here for my amusement.
Absolutely.
Jay, on the Miley Cyrus hit that's out right now, We Can't Stop, I heard that mix. Well, first I saw the video first. I'm like, this is incredible. So I went and downloaded the mix, the record, and fell in love with it. And then I found out you did it. It was kind of neat that I found out after I knew you had done it. So I got to tell you, I think that could be easily one of the most perfectly crafted pop mixes I've ever heard. I know that's an exaggeration, and I know I'm good with exaggerations, but this could be the first time I told the truth in a while about it.
Thank you.
I'm always at least 85% truthful. But it just does what a great mix should do, but yet it sounds modern too. I knew that mix was new. You could tell that it was new, and that's hard to do. And
did you approach it differently?
Yeah, I mean, being that it was produced by Mike Will, who's a little bit known more for his huge hip hop records, for
Right.
No Lies to many others. I approached it though completely different because I wanted it to sound and have the same credibility and integrity as those hip hop records in the club.
Right.
So when you hear it, you hear the mistakes, if you will. You hear a massive low end that you normally wouldn't hear on a pop record. However, you still wanted her vocals and the complementary instruments to be pop in a sense, but you still wanted the track to be as dirty and as credible and as mean as possible.
Really smart.
the concept of mixing it like a hip hop and a pop record, that was a big influence on the
Well,
way
yeah.
you went with it.
You got to understand, working with Mike, he is extremely hands-on, and he's not going to let you go too pop. You know, no matter how hard I remember having discussions with him, and he actually helped me in strategizing on a new concept and a new way of thinking how to mix pop records. Instead of, trying to make things perfect, trying to make things cut through, trying to make things really, really, really clean, so to speak, and mid-rangey. He wanted to figure out and really push me on how to make a record as loud, as competitive. When it comes on the radio, it cuts through the speakers like everyone else, but when it comes on, it sounds completely different because it has a low end that you really haven't heard on pop records for quite a long time.
On the vocals, you mentioned the vocals. One of the things that caught my ear immediately about the vocals, and I should have known it was your mix because nobody does echoes and delays like you do. You've got like quarter note delays, eighth note delays, 16th note delays, a lot of times all in the same bar.
Right.
How long, what's your philosophy behind?
Well, every great, mixer engineer has a template. So you'll bring in, I probably bring in 40 different, aux. They're all made inactive, and I don't know which ones I'm going to use, but they're all ready to go. Because if you sit and try to think of a million different things like you used to do when we used to be together, we would spend, a half a day on a reverb. You know what I mean? So I have, templates
You're being
that
kind.
I have templates that I have, and this specific template was more of an analog delay type of template where it's really, really warm. A lot of the high end is rolled off, and I wanted to wash it across the mix so it didn't stay right where the vocal was. So it's, a ping-pongy analogish type of delay that sits behind the vocal. And I think I put a spatializer just to get it a little bit wider than normal.
When you're hearing a vocal, what triggers in your mind, let me use a delay? Are you trying to get the delay to amplify the energy?
Delays to me, like I hate when we were talking about it earlier, when you hear a word and it's like hello, and here it comes, hello, 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 like the normal. I'm always thinking musical, like when there's a space and when there's something special, I'm not just gonna hit you with a repeat. I wanna hit you sometimes with a delay going into a reverb that spreads out this way. You know what I mean? I always think of trying to think outside the box. How am I going to impress, my peers and my counterparts with delays?
That's pretty cool.
Just don't do a delay to do a delay. Do something special, because that's art. You have the vocalist, you have the producer. This is our place to shine. You know what I mean? That's our lead solo.
On the 4 on the floor pattern on the kick drum on that song, you wove another little kick drum in and out of that. It just made the whole groove interesting for me. How did you do that?
Well, in a lot of hip hop records, you'll get a drum pattern that's basically a 4-bar loop or 8-bar loop, and the kick drum is pretty constant. It's the same amplitude through the whole record. Well, what I try to do is I try to think at it on a musical standpoint, and I caught this from Timberland, where he actually plays his stuff live. Like he uses his drum programmer as basically as a live drum kit, and just plays it all the way down. And with this specific record, I wanted to have that loose feel on just certain elements of the kick. So I took one of the kicks, which I thought was the accent kick, dragged it down to its own track, pitched it down maybe 3 or 4 cents to make it sound different than the main kick, and then just played with the volume, so it gave it a little bit more of a live feel.
What a great technique. Where'd you learn that?
You.
Oh, thanks. So,
Even if you didn't, you would need to give him credit.
And we would spend 6 hours.
Absolutely.
hey, look, it's my show. One of the techniques that I use, I'll let the last bar of the song play, and I listen to the decays and the reverbs, and you pick up some information. It sure sounded to me like you're using Hall on the Bricasti a lot throughout that song. Is that true?
I cannot lie. This is another call that I got from Dave saying, I remember the first day he got it or tested it out, he called me up and said, they made, God just made a reverb and you need to buy it. And I fought it for probably about a year. And I saw them at one of these conferences, and they convinced me to try it out, and I tried it out, and I was like, I'll take 2.
Right, absolutely.
Is it on the vocal?
It's on the vocal.
Oh, okay.
It was actually the large hall combined with the Sunset Chamber preset.
There's the background vocals. Like when I fight that battle between how do I place the top end on the lead vocal and how do I place the top end on the back vocals, you seem like you're doing something that I've never heard you do before. You kind of let the top end of the lead vocal have the 10K, but you exaggerated something lower on the background vocal, but it sounds like it's on a separate track. What am I hearing on the background vocals on that song?
Well,
It's like,
whenever I really try to do lead and background vocals that are initially playing at the same time, I rarely EQ them the same. I rarely get a great sound on the lead vocal and then duplicate it and put it on the backgrounds. You kind of want the backgrounds to have a little bit less of the top end, just on the simple fact it gives it a proximity effect. It gives it less presence, so it sits behind the track a little bit. But on this specific track, we really try to go organic and dirty and try to make the vocals sound as organic and as rock, so to speak, as we possibly can. So, we added a little grit to it. I don't know exactly what I used, but if I'm gonna guess what I used, I probably used either the lo-fi from Digi or the Decapitator.
That's what I'm hearing, because it's a grainy top end.
Yeah, and you just barely need to hit it. Like, you just bring it to 0.1 and that gives you just enough. And whenever you do that, make sure you do it initially. When you have that vision, put it on immediately so you can EQ and start your EQing process right after.
Another thing that caught my ear, and I don't know that I would have the courage to do this, but you've got a lot of stuff going on the right side of the mix. Why did you do that?
Well, initially when you listen to you say a lot, but really it's a really minimalist approach to the production, the way he did the song. And there's not a lot of stuff in this record. It's really mostly piano and the breakbeat of life. And when you have a record that's so sparse and you don't have that much musical stuff, you're not going to put it straight up the middle, especially when they give you mono sounds. And I believe a lot of the stuff was on this specific track was mono. So I just took the approach like the old heads did it back in the day, where they didn't f around. They just panned it hard right. And it just really gives it that separation and makes it wider, so to speak.
There's something spatial going on in that mix. I hit the mono button and nothing changed sonically. It just, the sides came in. What were you using to get that spatial effect? Because it's a little wider than a regular stereo mix, all in all.
Well, not to give too many secrets away, but I think everyone needs to know this. When you mix a record, 9 times out of 10, the mastering guy is going to self-impose his will on you, and he'll take the record and sometimes he'll make it more spatial, or he'll do things to the mix that sometimes work, sometimes doesn't work. But as technology has improved, you always say to yourself, well, why can't I do that myself? Why can I take care of everything first and then basically give it to him, and then maybe he can enhance it just a little bit or a lot. So I'm a huge fan, and I go from maybe 3 plugins, but I'll give you one that is a must get, and that's the Isotope. I put the Isotope on my stereo bus on pretty much 50% of my mixes.
You're talking about 5, Ozone 5?
Well, I switch. It depends. Sometimes I go to 5, sometimes I go to 4. Each plugin has its own strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. But one of the strengths on both is the imager. And for some reason, it just feels better when I kick it up just a notch. I'll switch it to 3 bands, and I'll just do the mid-range to the outside. I don't do the top, cool. I don't do the bottom. I just do the mid-range a little bit more wider, and it's worked for me.
It's about time after 10 years I got something back. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll be calling Isotope as soon as we get off there. Yeah.
Man, Beach is Better, the interlude on the Jay-Z album, the new Jay-Z record. I know I'm throwing superlatives around like crazy, but the low end on that record humbled me. I think it was a sexual experience, Herb. It was that good.
That may be too much information, actually. That's okay.
There's no maybe. It is.
Precisely.
The kick and the snare on that record just, 0-0, but somehow they're just louder. Do you have any recollections? And there again, that was the Mike Will thing too.
Well, to go twofold, it's all about gain staging and the platform you use. And not to give, too many secrets away, but there's enough producers that you can kind of get the gist of this. But for some reason or another, whenever I get kicks or 808s from Fruity Loops, for whatever reason, because the platform is 64-bit float, I believe, I could be wrong, but whatever the platform is, it just comes to me louder. It just comes to me extremely aggressive. Now, I'm not saying that it's remotely close to where it got to, but when I initially got it, when you start from an 8, you can make an 8 a 12, you know what I mean, rather than a 4 a 10.
Did you do a lot of manipulating to it? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, we pushed it probably, I finished the first mix, and once again, we just kept going and going. And I'll tell you a funny answer to the story. Jay-Z initially didn't want anyone to touch his stuff other than his team. And Mike Will toted the company line and said, well, you're not getting my song unless my guy does it. So long story short, unwillingly, they sent the files with, this FBI security. I did the mix and literally sent it out 5 minutes later, got the call back and said, can you do 3 more mixes? So
That's the
kudos to Mike Will.
And kudos
Shout
to
outs
you.
to Mike Will.
The drone bass that's on Beach. Did you have any conflicts between it and the kick drum? Because they occupy a lot of the same space.
Well, I'm about to give, this might go down as the tip of the century on Pensado's place. If you can run like a sound effects.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to give, since Dave's given me so many, things that I use, it would be silly of me not to pay it forward as well. What I like to do is I like to get the kick on hip hop records, especially. I like to get the kick as massive as possible. And back in the day, they couldn't do that. Like if you listen to the early Premier records, the kick would be really punchy and aggressive in your face, but it really wouldn't have the low end knock because the bass line would be so low and so heavy. And that's what, kind of how Bob Powers did it in the early, his early years. So with me, I love the big fat round kicks and I love it consistent. But when a bass line comes in, you can't have that big fat round kick with the big fat round bass because your speakers would blow up. So I just took the approach that a lot of the EDM guys do and a lot of the rock guys do, is that I always sidechain my big fat bass. So I'll have the big fat kick, and then every time the kick hits, it'll dip the bass. But then you're saying to yourself, well, it'll sound like an EDM record where it dips. Well, I'm not dipping the entire bass. I'm only dipping the low end frequency that's being replaced by the kick. So I have sometimes separating the bass into 3 different tracks. And the super sub track that I'm dipping is the one that's getting sidechain compressed. And then you have the middle, and then you have the top. And rarely in rap do you need the top, only sometimes like when you have the fret of a live bass.
That's pretty cool. I noticed like you, a lot of times. I noticed a lot of times you split tracks up a lot.
Oh, I'm the split. You can call me Master Splitter.
Master splitter.
Master split. I split. I'm the parallel king. I hate EQ. I hate phase. I can hear it. So if I can parallel and filter instead of EQ, all day long, like Lionel Richie. That's all night.
I know this is kind of getting a little into the minutia, but the ahs on that song on Beach, what did you put on those? Those. I mean, why would you get excited about ahs? But that's
when you only have 30, because it was an interlude, and you only have 30 seconds to impress, one of the greatest rappers of all time. You are listening to a highlight. This has to be the best hi-hat, the best ahs, the best kick. So basically on that, I think I ran it through a plugin, a soft tube plugin called TSAR, which is a great reverb, but then I reamped that reverb. And the cool thing about it is you have the ahs that are obviously in the middle, and then you have the initial reverb, which is the TSAR on one side, and then you take it again and you reamp it and put the reamped one, which has a little grain and a little guitar, effect to it, even wider. So it's like in stages. And then you have your initial ahs, you have the verb that has a slight pre-delay, and then you have your amped verb that has another longer pre-delay. So it hits you at a.
the pre-delay. You using the one in the reverb, or are you adding delays?
Yeah,
to delay
you have the verb. I mean, you have the initial ahs. You have the delay, which has a pre-delay. I mean, the initial verb that has a pre-delay, and then you have this same verb that's been reamped that's a little wider that has a longer pre-delay. So it just hits, but it's super quick. It's just.
It felt to me like on that song that you kind of split it up into two thoughts. The drums had one concept and the keyboards had another concept. The keyboards sound modern, the drums sound amazing, but somewhat traditional. How did you marry those two? If that's true, how did you get those to work together so thoroughly again?
It's pretty simple. I mean, if you listen to any Mike Will record from Bugatti all the way to Beach is Better, his theory is when his records come on to be the loudest, most hard-hitting, aggressive records out there. You know what I mean? And to achieve that, I mean, you can apparently hear. I mean, he's using harmonics like, not many people can, you know what I mean? So his 808s are really, really, really present. Instead of that low sub, his is like a guitar. He uses 808s like a guitar. Yeah. So, but with the instrumentation, a lot of the stuff was mono, you know what I mean? So what I love to do, and I do it all the time, is I just love hearing things in headphones. I love, I know that 50% of records being heard nowadays are through earpods and headphones. So I love playing tricks. And I'll sit all day trying to figure out how.
Whoa, all day? You did something all day and I did it half a day and I get slammed?
Well, when I say all day, my all day is about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But that 5 minutes, initially it'll be done, and then I'll continue to jump back on it. Like initially I'll have the bass, or that synth that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. It was panning the entire thing initially, and I was just like, I don't like that. It's too much. It pans in the intro. Yeah, it's too much. But it pans in the intro, but the only thing that's panning is the mid-range and the top end. The low end stays up the middle.
Very cool, very cool. There's a lot of like buzzy triangle square wave sounds that could be in any EDM song in that record. You just were proud to leave them like you didn't hip hop them up. You just left them proud to be pop.
Yeah, that was what's so great about the song, and a lot of people. I mean, hopefully it'll come out. The song is actually longer. The song
exists. I thought it was. Just
it's. I know the track exists to it. Oh, okay. I know there's a longer track, and I don't know if Mike will release it, but there's these church bells and all kinds of stuff that just takes it to another level. That for whatever reason. Probably brilliant because Jay-Z is a genius, was just cut short and maybe will be released later in his career.
Wow.
In the intro, I compared you to an athlete, and as you guys have been talking, part of your approach is so tactical, but you also have to balance the producer's point of view.
Right.
So Mike has a very definitive point of view. Is that something you have to gauge mix by mix where you're following his lead and then putting in your thing? Or does
absolutely. There's certain mixers that just enhance the producer's idea. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You'll go in and you'll get basically the rough enhanced.
Yeah.
I don't work like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've followed pretty much the same path that I saw with Dave, where is I crash or burn. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If I can make your record the best record in the world, I'm going to do everything possible. And sometimes I got to dial it back. Sometimes they'll come in and be like, I love everything except this. And
change all that.
But I'd rather dial back than, and then 9 times out of 10, that's why I have the Mike Wills who say, if Jay's not touching my record, no one is. Tricky and Dream were the same way. Mm-hmm. Jay and Dave don't touch our records, you ain't getting them.
See, the note that I've always watched about Jaycen when he was with you and now is that he channels that aggression in a way that's athletic. No athlete plays. You can't be a star athlete and be reserved. But it's controlled.
But we're competitive. Like we're like literally we mix records. And I know Dave's. I don't care if it's the worst record in the world. Now all records are great, but the worst record in the world, we're mixing it like it's the first single on Madonna.
Absolutely, have to.
And we'll sit there killing ourselves trying to make it a Madonna record, and sometimes we just got to be like. And I used to say to Dave, like, Dave, walk away. It ain't gonna get there. We're done.
I know. But that's a great point to our audience, which is you've got to take each one of those mixes. And that is your lifeline. That's your reputation on the line.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
One of the things that of many things that I respect about you is the process that you go through when you start a mix is deceptively simple, but very, very important. And I think this, like a mix comes in to Larrabee. Take me your first thought when you hear the song. What's your first thought?
Well, the most important process for an engineer, I don't care who you speak to, it's going to be gain staging. Especially in the box, if you are in the box. I'm not in the box per se, but it's just as important, but more important when you're in the box. If you don't do the painstaking gain staging process from your drums to your synthesizers to your vocals, by the time you get to your final last line of defense, if you have everything pushing into that, it's going to make your mix sound tiny. So the first thing I do is I go straight to my gain staging process, and I know exactly what I want, and I set it there.
So you're pulling stuff down at that point.
Yeah, usually, because 9 times out of 10, they're already hot because they give me the files going into their L2 or whatever they're using, and I automatically take whatever they're using off, and then it's redlining my meters. So I have to take that down, and I take it down to about -7, and I start from there. And then I gain stage the drums, then I gain stage the synthesizers, and I gain stage the vocals. And we were talking earlier how we both agree that you don't want to limit or compress effects for the vocals. You really want them to be alive and free. So if you rely on one thing to stop all of them instead of gain staging, you're probably losing about 4 or 5 dB of headroom, and you're like, why isn't my mixes as loud as or competitive as the radio? Because you're gain staging only at the end. You're not gain staging or controlling your mix from the bottom up.
At what point do you put something on the stereo bus?
Immediately.
But you don't clamp it then.
This is no. This is, you got to understand. This is 2013. You are the mastering engineer and the mixer. You know what I mean? And when you give it to the mastering guy, you better trust him. As much as you trust yourself. And if you don't, you better master it yourself. And I know a lot of the top guys pretty much master themselves and send it as is and says, hey, if you can make it better, go for it. If you can't, just send this out. So long story short, yeah, I put it on immediately. I don't touch it until the end. I don't push up into it or bring it down until the very end, but I immediately put something on the top.
Let's say.
Because why would you wait to the end? You want to hear what it's doing immediately. You wait till the end, it's going to change your mix completely.
But you're tweaking it as you go, right?
As I go, because sometimes you got to bring. We've done it a million times. You'll be done with the mix, like, it sounds great, but it seems a little too. So I go straight to my SSL, level trim it down, bring it down a little bit.
When you start reaching for EQ and get the mix proper going, do you have a plan in your head? Like, let me put this little footnote in. I've never seen someone that had such clear-cut references in their head like you do. You it seems like you know immediately, within seconds, what you want everything in the mix to sound like. At what point in the process when you sit down?
Immediately when I hear the song, you're not reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of these songs are just, especially now in the rebirth of R&B and dance. You've heard it before. So my Rolodex, I have an unfair advantage because I grew up in Baldwin Hills, which is primarily black, then moved to Pacoima, which was primarily Hispanic, then moved to Calabasas, which was primarily white. So I listened to all kinds of music. So as soon as I hear a record, I'm like, oh, that sounds like Guns N' Roses, or oh, that sounds like a Jeffrey Osborne record. I just have a great Rolodex.
I was going to ask you, because are there genres that you don't mix before we get to batter's box, which we're teeing up, that you want to go and do work
Oh, absolutely.
in?
I think this is one of the major concerns of engineering is, like, when you become good in a certain field,
Get pigeonholed.
You're pigeonholed. Now, I'm a little bit more diverse than others. Like, this month I did a Celine Dion record, and then you do a Future record or a Juicy J record. So I'm a little bit more diverse in that. However, you pretty much get pigeonholed when you become good at something. And I would love to do country. I just did an Aloe Black record that was very, very, had a bluegrass feel, and he did his acoustic version of Wake Me Up which is a huge record by Avicii.
Yep.
And we did the acoustic version, which was really country and folky, and it was amazing.
Oh,
and,
cool.
You
I
know,
want to hear that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But you know how it is.
What's your monitoring
You
chain?
might be able to hook up over that country thing.
What's your monitoring chain these days?
Well, my monitoring train, I use. I'm an old head. I know a lot of people look at you crazy, but I love NS10s. I love my ATCs. You know,
25?
25s, and for just the music and for the instruments only, because I don't really like how it, the mid-range is on the vocals, I use the barefoots.
Oh.
But primarily, I would say 70%, 60, 70% NS10s, and then 20%. The finalizers, ATCs. I finish every mix with my ATCs.
What headphones do you like to listen to?
Oh, the Sennheisers.
Okay.
They're the best.
But your NS10s, nobody's NS10s on the planet sound like your NS10s.
I keep them really close because I like.
I asked Hodis yesterday if you had like a sub hidden somewhere.
No, the trick is if anyone is using NS10, sometimes you get a false low end, like you want to push more and more and more low end because the NS10s don't have that. But if the closer you put them together, the more low end you get. A lot of people know that. But I just, for whatever reason, I've always worked on them and learned how that woofer sounds when you got too much bass, what that woofer sounds like. Like I have a friend, we both have a friend, John Marie, who mixes on Oratones. And you're like, how the fuck do you know low end on Oratones? But he knows how that speaker talks.
Yeah.
I learned how to do kick drums on NS10s from you because I used to use my mains for NS10s, and I'm pretty good now with my NS10s. You ready for Batter's Box?
Let's tee up Batter's Box,
So
sir.
footnote, Herb, we got the originator of
This
Batter's
is
Box
Batter's
with us
Box.
today.
Started with Jaycen Joshua.
Started with Jaycen.
I pulled over at a gas station at nights a day. That's a segment that we've been doing ever since.
Yeah.
Fire away.
All right, sub. Oh, wait a minute. I'm gonna do something a little different today. Instead of.
So other people's done Batter's Box?
1 or 2 times.
1 or 2 times?
Yeah, thanks for watching the show, Jay. So we're gonna do concepts today.
Okay.
Sub.
Concept meaning conceptually what I do to it, or
Yeah.
concept?
Yeah. What a plug-in that you would use for
Oh, the
subs?
plugin. The BBE D82 subharmonics.
Well, you told me about that. I haven't gotten it yet. 200 on a bass.
200 on the bass.
Up
I
or
would,
down?
I would parallel compress it with the SSL compressor, and then put probably the mid-range Pultec on it.
Wow.
If plug-in wise, soft tube would really works on that. The soft tube Pultec.
Oh, okay. High end 10K on a vocal.
Man, it depends on the mic. If it's a Telefunken, it's something warm and great. You can really, really have fun and mess with anything between the Brainworks, which gives you a really
V2?
Yeah, the V2, which gives you a really grainy Avalon type of sound, 2055, or I would go with the soft tube passive 10K bump.
Oh yeah, you told me about that the other day. Surgery on the low end.
Surgery on the low end, it really depends, man. I do, like I said, I parallel compress a lot, I sidechain a lot, but for instance, if I have a kick that, is really good but doesn't have that low bottom that I want, and I parallel it, and I have just nothing but the low end bottom, I usually detail it with the fab filter because you can isolate each
I like
Each
I
band.
like the GUI too on that. De-esser.
I don't DS, really. I literally shout out to both of my assistants, Ryan and Maddox, because they have the painstaking process of drawing out every S and every T, and you just do it volume-wise. And this is something you can't, people understand. All you're doing is compressing, that band or that frequencies, but as soon as you put the de-esser on, you're taking away that sparkle that you might need. So why would you do that if you can actually hand draw it out, which we do now with Clip Gain, which is the remarkable change the game.
Stereo bus.
Stereo bus, it varies per mix, but I'll give you an example for the mix that you were talking about. Beach is better. On that specific mix, it was the Isotope once again, but it was the Isotope 5. And it was going into the Slate FGX. You know what I mean? And that really, and you got to understand, when you put the Slate on, you're putting on a beast that's going to change your mix. And if you're got a sound with that, you're going to keep it. Now, mind you, I'm totally analog going back into something that's digital on my two bus. But with Miley Cyrus, it was completely different. I had the Fairchild, which didn't hit any of the compression, just ran straight through the tubes. And from the Fairchild, I went back into Pro Tools, and I think I just used a little bit of the L2. But I worked pretty close with Dave Kutch on that one and trusted him on doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And he sent it back, and he killed it on the first one, so I knew that I didn't really have to do too much.
What's your go-to plugin for clarity when you're trying to get something clear?
Specifically, what instrument or vocal?
Oh, like a mix.
Oh, an entire mix?
Yeah.
It totally depends. I really don't try to EQ the high end on the stereo bus. I try to use if I need more high end, I turn up my hi-hats, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It depends on but if I need it, if I need the boost, 9 times out of 10, it would probably come from either the Isotope or I would find, my linear phase EQ of the day. But I rarely add high end to the end of my mix.
He still got it.
No question.
I think he kicked my ass.
It was Derek Jeter-like, like leader of the team, uber competitive. But very,
So I'm like A-Rod on steroids over here.
No, you're pre-steroids. So.
You're Babe Ruth.
Whoa.
Well, that's not so bad.
I know where you
for
live.
a man your age. Let's introduce our boy Chong Gore. He's over in the corner office. Chong, you got a few questions for our guests?
Yeah, I got a bunch actually.
Great.
This first one's from Austin Black. The new Earl sweatshirt is described almost as lo-fi but more pristine. Were there certain plugins that helped you achieve that sound?
Absolutely. It's so funny that you said that because Earl Sweatshirt is probably the realest artist that I've ever worked with. Both him and Tyler, and they want to stay as true to hip hop as possible. But he gave me some liberty, and part of that liberty was running his incredible records through the SSL. But the one thing that I didn't want to do because of that was to use plugins to EQ. I actually had to kind of reteach myself how to EQ on the board. So, and using a lot of analog stuff because he really wanted that. And I was like, you know what? Let me get surgical with the old stuff. So on that specific mix, it was similar to Miley Cyrus, We Can't Stop, where, we kept it real for pretty much all the records.
Cool.
Chong Gore, give us another.
This next one's from Marab M. What kind of systems are you listening to your mixes on outside of the studio, and is there a favorite consumer device that you use for referencing?
I listen to it in my car a lot when I really, like Beach is Better. I probably did 75 car tests. You know what I mean? Because it was a pretty big. I mean, growing up in the early Jay-Z's career, man, it was just somebody that I was so proud to work with, and I've worked with everybody. So this one, I did quite a bit of car tests. And I just tell everybody, it's not what I use, because I love my room, as every engineer does. You don't want to leave your room because you know exactly how your room sounds. But specifically the Sennheiser, believe I have the 800s, I forgot. Whatever the last model is, it's like the final level. I could have the 1100s for all I know. But I do a car test, and my car test is a BMW, so BMW.
One more, Chong Gore.
Jay Brown, when working with large sessions, how do you organize the tracks, and what are you comping down if you do decide to comp something?
Well, I comp everything. Like literally, if I have 75 kicks making one kick, and that one kick sounds like the rough, then I will comp that down immediately. But organization is the key to victory. And once again, like the top guys have an unfair advantage because we all have assistants who organize for us. And I'm really OCD, so I'm color coordinated. I have all my drums in one section, but then those are coordinated. The kicks are one color, the snares are one color. And I believe I'm the first one that I can say that I took Dave from his all blue color to the color coordination of. I don't know if it's still is this they use color coordinated now.
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
still using almost 50% of all the stuff that you did.
Yeah,
he
so-
walks in one day and he goes, Dave, love you. I can't do this anymore. I just can't. This ain't gonna work for me. And for some reason, I had inherited like cross patching. Remember, I cross patched like
This guy had a kick chain and a vocal chain that was like the vocals. The lead vocal had to go to track 23 and 24. You knew that was happening, but for some reason, because of the old school ways, and he was on the using the old Sony digital. I don't know what ADATs, but he had me going from this patch and another patch and around. He had like 95 patches just to go. I was like, why don't we just go from here to here? And he was like, do it. The rest was.
and it worked out good.
You evolved our guy.
And
Jaycen,
color coordinated too.
But
Everything was
not to
color
say, but
coordinated.
literally, organization is the key, because
It
when
really
you're
is.
organized and you sit and you comp down, simple is more. Like you can mix a record that's only 32 tracks way better than you can mix a record that's 132 tracks.
Yeah,
No
that is
question.
a great point to lead.
And I
off
think
on.
every engineer will tell you that.
I think so.
Fast hour, brother.
Thank you, man.
Having you do more, we can get you to do some more
Please,
stuff.
please. And hopefully next time at my studio.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? There we go.
Yeah.
Let's do something from the play. And then there's some education stuff we want to get you involved in too. I think Jaycen's point of view is really key to young folks coming up, and some folks who are still trying to adjust their game, because it's clarity so real. It's just right to the point, and that's helpful. No beating around the bush. Young Dave, why don't you say goodbye?
And by the way, it wasn't a 3348. It was Pro Tools.
Hilarious. And if anybody has any questions for me, because I'm all about doing exactly what Dave did to me, you guys can contact me at my website at jaycenjoshua.com.
Great.
Cool,
Very cool. Say goodbye, sir.
Okay, guys, one of the things I want you to take away from this is in any creative space we profit from our taste and we're victimized by our taste. And in Jaycen's case, I knew him before his engineering skills were what they are now. And one thing that he always had was just an incredible taste. He had an incredible sense of what things should sound like. The only thing he had to learn was how to execute that clear vision in his head. I have to listen to my references 3, 4, 5, 10 times a day just to keep them in my head. He's got them burned in ROM in his brain. I don't know how he does it, but the important thing to take away is that if you want to do this and you want to do it at a high level, it's taste that you're selling and nothing else. And the way you get taste is immersing yourself in this incredible thing we call music. And study the greats. Jaycen and I are very competitive. We'd listen to other guys' mixes, good, bad, indifferent. We learn from everything, and we might be working on a Dream record, but we might be listening to Nine Inch Nails. He's a Nine Inch Nails fanatic. So take that away and put that in your skill set, and one day maybe you can be the next Jaycen Joshua. And thanks, my friend. You know I love you.
Appreciate it. Love you too.
See you next week.